now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And good morning, all. I know. It's one of those mornings. Everything's just a little funky and weird and cool. I know you can tell, not to make it about me, but I just came from doing a big morning show.
You know who I am?
Yeah,
Fancy.
That's why I am. Mark, you're all, you're all painted up like a beauty pageant contestant, man. What's going on? That's my brother. Well, they make you up, and I thought, wait a minute, I'll just leave the makeup on for the big Mark Thompson show. So I'm hoping that some new viewers come to our show too. But it is a thrill to, I don't know, Kim, I never really missed, I'd like to say good morning to Kim, first of all. And good morning.
Morning.
Yeah, and a morning to Albert.
Morning.
And I'll tell you who is back with us today, and he's playing a hurt, is the adorable, highly competent, and doggedly committed to this show. Tony, everybody. Yeah.
Thanks, Tony.
Yeah. Tony is back. He is playing a hurt, man. So thank you.
Can you bring your level up on your board a little bit? Your mic up on your board a bit.
Bring my board up, my
there
mic
we go.
like
there
that.
You go. Yeah, you're just a bit lower than your music there. So
it is just an adventure every day with the levels. We don't know day to day. They all seem to change.
I blame StreamYard.
Yeah, I don't think it's anybody's fault.
Or me,
fine
whatever you want.
Pre-show, and then we start the show, and it's like,
well, I started the music hot, and there's a little bit of a hot mix.
The Mark Thompson logo. I can caress it.
Yes. Oh, that is wild. Yeah.
Fixed.
Right.
I'll get out of the shot too. That'll fix everything.
Kind of a Hollywood Squares-ish, Brady Bunch-ish kind of hybrid. So, good morning, everybody in the chat. Good morning to all of our regular viewers. We'll cover a lot today. We'll cover rain in California, Northern California, Southern California, the Sierra, the power outages around the Sacramento area that they may likely return with more rain. We will cover what happened on Monday Night Football, a tragedy that, to be honest, everyone kept saying. They were eerily quiet, many of the commentators, who you'll hear from in just a moment. But they kept saying, I've never seen anything like this. And there's some truth to that. As a viewer, pretty avid viewer of sports and football for a long time, there's truth to that. But in a way, you saw some version of what we saw last night in the past. And then this is my real point I'm leading up to. It's pretty remarkable we haven't seen exactly what happened last night with a player's cardiac arrest provoked by this contact. It's a violent game, and the degree of damage to the body that's done in football is immense. And, they get you in pads in some states like Texas. You're practically born with shoulder pads on. They get you right into the football program. It's a celebrated and elevated sport in American culture, and yet obviously it carries with it. We've seen the CTE concerns, the concussive nature of these hits, even on a normal hit. And so many of these conversations are around the violence of football. Those conversations are happening today. But in this case, you have a player who is knocked out of the game, as I say, with a cardiac arrest, having produced conditions whereby literally they're providing life-saving treatment on the field, right? CPR, and then they actually had to shock his heart back into operation. He's listed in critical condition this morning, and they say, and I need to put I'm wearing contacts, so I apologize for the reading glasses. I I put the contacts on for the TV thing. They say that he is in stable condition, but in critical condition.
Mhm.
And, this guy's only 24. Damar Hamlin's a guy out of Pittsburgh, and he's a terrific player on the Buffalo Bills defensive squad. And by all accounts, this is what I thought was sort of missing last night as they rolled commercial after commercial and kind of went around the horn. By all accounts, he's a great sort of member of the community, a contributor to the community. He's not some guy who's, just going to the club and cashing big NFL checks. He was quite the, you might want to say, citizen, and still is, presumably, but I'm saying up to this point. So I want to put that to the side for a second. I'll revisit it in a minute. The other thing I'm putting to the side is the fact that David K Johnston is joining us. He'll be in the 11 o'clock hour. Kim, I saw David K Johnston on with Chip Franklin this morning.
What?
That's exactly what I said.
What?
Yes.
So now what, the Franklin is poaching your people?
Well, to be fair, Chip's got a pretty big Rolodex and, but I'll tell you one huge difference.
You're very forgiving.
Between Chip's treatment of David K Johnston and our treatment of David K Johnston. But I'll share that big difference with David K Johnston when he joins us at 11 o'clock. But there's a reason that David K Johnston should be doing this show over any other show.
And that's because?
I'll share that next. Remind me, Kim, and I'll share it next hour if you would, please. But Chip is great, and of course he just has the great Rolodex, and so I don't begrudge him any booking. Did you want me to mention something else, Albert? Before I wanted to just mention David K Johnston in the context of the Kevin McCarthy battle for GOP leadership in the House. I will get to that. Essentially what's happening now is there's no ideological break within the GOP. This is all about power. It's all about control. It's really a bizarre kind of back and forth that's going on between McCarthy and members of a GOP coalition that is frayed, right? We'll talk to David K Johnston about that in the next hour. Smash the like button like a boss. I
smashed it with your iron
appreciate
rod.
the thumbs up.
We do have a sale for the merch, but I need the details so we can make a proper announcement. So I've already reached out.
Okay, so you're going to put the details together and then I will announce it? And that because that will be a major announcement. It would qualify as a major announcement. And we do have the major announcement fanfare that must run before a major announcement. So we will do that after 10:30.
Yes, after 10:30.
All right. No, I don't hate Chip. Who said I hate Chip? Ricky O'Bear? No, I just told you. I think Chip's amazing, and I think he's got a great Rolodex. So and he does a much different show than I do. So it's I don't feel any competitive thing with Chip. Anyway, great to have you here. I do want to acknowledge Steve Moskowitz as well. More than 30 years, the tax pro that is your advocate. He is the sponsor and the exclusive sponsor of this show. Steve Moskowitz has been reached at 888-TAX-DEAL. You can reach him at 888-TAX-DEAL or MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve Moskowitz is your dude. So let's get into it.
Yes, he is.
The Mark Thompson Show.
So what happened last night was extraordinary. As I say, it occurs against the backdrop of many questions around the NFL and around this violent game. Also against the backdrop of what was a much anticipated football contest, right? Very, very high profile. Maybe, Super Bowl caliber type lead up to last night's Monday Night Football game. So what happened on the field, I mentioned it in this context, was very high profile. It wasn't happening on a Sunday where there were a bunch of other games being played. You had a national audience tuning into a much advertised game. And as I say, a game with extreme consequences for both teams. And then this horrifying scenario unfolded. We have some, you want to run the Buck stuff first, Albert?
Yeah, let's run with some of that commentary.
I wanted to share with you today some of the things that I thought were particularly standout after the fact. And one of them was from the play-by-play guy, the guys in the booth, if you will. They were Troy Aikman, former quarterback for the Cowboys, and Joe Buck, who was doing the play-by-play. So, Albert, will you, or Tony, I guess it hasn't. Here are their reactions to the Hamlin situation.
Man, we've had a lot of laughs talking on Monday nights after these games, and this was a big one. We were looking forward to it, all of us, because of the significance of this game. And here we are at this moment, and a young man fights for his life. And gratefully, it's nothing that we have a great deal of context with. But Joe, I'll begin with you, and I salute the work that you all did there, just allowing the moments to happen and try to provide the context as they did. How do you describe what you've been processing since this happened?
It's really hard. It's hard just to describe it. I mean, what we all feel. You think about the Hamlin family and what they're all going through. That's the focus. But this went from a sports story to a news story, from a sporting event to a matter of life and death like that.
Yeah.
And there was a moment when the medical personnel was all out there, and we're standing up here, and unfortunately, like Lisa said, and you guys have been talking about, we've been through a lot of situations in games where we've stood up here and you're watching medical personnel make sure somebody's okay down on the field, and you think they're going through a blow to the head or something along those lines. And it switched. It switched quickly, and it went from what is the typical everybody gather around, let's make sure this player is okay, to those who were on the field in his immediate vicinity administering CPR and really pounding on his chest. And a lot of that was not on television. I have no idea what's on social media. I have not checked it, but we were sitting here and I'm looking at Troy and he's looking at me, and it was like, my God, what did this is not what you expected to see. And now, is he okay? And it went on and on and on. And then that's when the players were gathered around so tight that it was hard to even see what was going on. So this was, took your breath away.
Stop this right here, Tony, if you would, please. I just wanted to make a point as a viewer. Two things became clear quickly. One was that this was not a routine concussion injury or other injury, not because the ambulance was out on the field. I've seen ambulances out on the field before. That was like the thing that they started saying, I've never seen an ambulance out on the field. I have, a lot. But because of the reaction of the players, there were so many players in tears. You saw them overwrought there immediately. And that told us watching, this is a life and death situation. Yeah. And then they kept going to commercial, and they kept throwing to the studio and being at a loss for words, these people who speak for a living. And you got it, that this was life and death. In fact, I thought, wow, this guy literally may have died. Yeah. And I think his heart did stop. I mean, that's what cardiac arrest is, right?
Well, yeah, he was under CPR. That means they're trying to get your heart started again. Yeah.
And it means you can't breathe, right? So that they were, as you say, Kim, that there was CPR being administered for 9 minutes. I believe that was the number that, that's a serious situation.
There's kind of some confusion because CNN was reporting that they held the ambulance with an unstable patient like that to wait for his mother to get in, that they waited several minutes, but it doesn't make sense to me that they would do that. And there was a horrible accident outside of my house where a woman died. And the ambulance didn't leave right away. And I asked them, why are you waiting? This is a critical situation. And they said, because if someone's under CPR and if someone is not stable, we stabilize the patient first before we roll. We're in the back busy working. So yes, every minute counts, but we can't move until we get things under control in the ambulance. So I tend to think that was more the situation when you have a life and death situation like that. I don't know who said they were waiting for the mother to get into the ambulance, but that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I I saw that same thing, and I don't know. I mean, maybe they were. I mean, also holding the ambulance. I mean, I'm guessing the mother was close to the ambulance already. I mean, her son has been on the field for 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It was I don't know the full extent of the wait time, but it was certainly sufficient to get the mother into the ambulance. Uh, Look, they were committed to bringing that kid back and to stabilizing the condition.
Right.
But the game was canceled. The weird thing about the game, then I'll get back to the medical condition in a minute, was that you have to know something about the NFL, which you probably do know, but I'll just reiterate it for all of us. And that is there's a lot of money involved, right?
Yep.
I mean, tremendous amount of money, but it's not just money, it's livelihoods, it's lives that connect. When you saw during COVID the cancellations of live sporting events, you began to see all the tributaries, all of the extensions of this main event. It wasn't just football at that time, it was baseball as well. And you saw cancellation of these events, or even just modifying these events to not include spectators, affecting so many lives. So you have so many people dependent on this game that there is a natural double clutch as to what's going to happen. Now, you and I may look in and go, what, are you kidding me? You cancel the game. I mean, this is ridiculous. I mean, why is this even a conversation? You can make that decision in 10 seconds or less. But because of what I just mentioned, and because of the administrative levels at the NFL, they needed it made at a different time. To me, the most awkward moment was, amid a festival of awkward moments, was that they were going to warm up on both sides for 5 minutes and then they were going to get back to play. I mean, that to me was insulting, you know. But again, I think it speaks to all of the moving parts that go into an NFL game. Kim, sorry.
No, I have a friend whose husband is a high school football coach. She always asks me, "Are you going to let your son play football? When is he going to start?" Expecting that would just be the case. And we decided a long time ago that he can play any other sport but that because of the brain injury, because that's not what we want for his future. And she said, "No, no, no, you don't understand. So many precautions have been taken and it's so much better now. And you don't have to worry about like that anymore because there's padding and the rules of the game have been changed. And it's just, there's not the same type of threat level. There's not the same type of danger." It shows I mean, I think for anyone thinking that, this shows that. And I was watching a player who on CNN talking to Anderson Cooper last night, and he was saying it was kind of like PTSD for him to watch this happen because he had seen in his college career and his pro career, two players get hit so hard and injured so badly that both were paralyzed from the waist down. And he said this brought that back to him. So I guess the question that I have to ask, and you're talking about the money in the NFL, is it worth it? Is the risk to health and safety worth it? I mean, obviously football's not going anywhere, so it's worth it to everyone else, but it's just not worth it to me.
Well, you've packed a lot into that comment, and it's all really good. And the question as to what you would do with your own family, with your own kids, that is a reasonable one. It's a terrifically violent sport. You've seen people pull away from the sport at the same age as this guy, 24. Somebody was, I think, lighting me up because I said this kid. I guess I was trying to speak to the fact that he has so much of his life ahead of him. You're right. He's a grown person at age 24. He's not a kid. But, relative to people in their 40s and 50s and 60s and on up, he's a kid, right, with his whole life ahead of him. He is but then as to, what should happen, I just want to mention on the heels of what Kim has just said, that the CTE evidence it's pointing to not just big hits being the problem. They point to any concussive contact.
Yep.
So virtually every play is, look at the CTE report or even the reductos on the CTE reports. They point to that. They point to, you don't have to wait for a huge injury where there is a concussion and literally somebody is carted out of the game.
Yep.
It's happening on every play. So to your point, would you let your kid play? I mean, it's so hard when we, as I've just said a few minutes ago, we celebrate these athletes in ways that have everything to do with all the stuff that's important in society, right? They have visibility. They get, I mean, look at Gronk. He's on every ad. Look at Tom Brady. He's on every ad. They're showered in money, fame, the celebrity. It's intoxicating. And you're ready to take chances and go, I'm not going to have a problem. Then you see guys on television like Terry Bradshaw. He got knocked around. He seems to still have his act together. Michael Strahan, et cetera. Troy Aikman, you just saw him in the last clip. So I think you do that game with your mind, saying, I hope that my kid won't have an issue, but he really wants to play.
Yeah.
Hard to say no, you know.
No, it's not hard for me to say no. Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, my job is to protect. My job is to get you to adulthood in the best condition possible, right?
Sure.
It's my job. I got to keep you safe.
I mean,
So,
this is a great point. Played 10 years, saw players having to quit due to concussions. Good friend almost paralyzed from the waist down, still has back problems. The glory is addicting. Yeah, exactly. Hey, look, you know, for all this stuff, though, we let our kids, but before everybody starts taking a victory lap about, oh, I don't let my kid play football. You let your kid eat that crap that makes him diabetic. I'm not talking about you, Kim, necessarily. Maybe you do too. But I'm just saying.
There are a million things that I could do better.
So the idea that somehow I served my kid up at age 21, perfectly protected from everything bad and making all the right decisions, you do your best is what you mean. Yeah, I get it. When a kid wants a pizza, and yet my child is struggling with various things, diabetes, borderline this or whatever that, it's hard to say no still. Even though you know the pizza is not good for a sugary drink or fill in the blank. And similarly, when your kid really wants to play sports, soccer, football, whatever it may be, it's hard to say no. And parents, you know I'm right about this. And yes, you can draw a hard line. I'll tell you this and then I'll move on. My dad, all I wanted when I was a kid was to ride a motorcycle. I wanted to ride a motorcycle so badly. And I looked at, my days were consumed at the back of magazines. They had these little mini bike ads. Like I could get a mini bike and I had a little money for mowing lawns and stuff like that. And my dad, I don't remember him hardlining much of anything the way he hardlined that. No motorcycles and no mini bikes. And I still feel, honestly, like he cheated me out of something that really would have been a lot of fun for me. I don't think I would have been hurt on mini bikes. Now, back in those days, they didn't have the helmet requirement maybe on mini bikes. Now your kid might be safer on a mini bike. I don't know. But I remember I pulled up to the house, last thing on this, on the back of somebody's motorcycle. They were a neighbor. They lived 3 doors away.
Oh, no.
He was an adult, my dad's age, who took me out just down the block and back. And he had that shiny motorcycle. It was so cool. And my dad was melting down. I don't remember him being that angry that many times. So I'm sure to him, that was the right thing. Keep my kids safe.
Yep.
Similarly, Kim says, my son will never play football. So there you have it. I think that, reasonable minds can differ on that. Clearly, the safest thing, hey, I put the kid in his room and he's on the computer and he only reads books. I don't let him.
Well, that's not good either,
Exactly. My point,
And
balance, right?
your child could get injured in any sport. He could take a baseball to the face. He could break a leg playing basketball, whatever it is.
Exactly.
But you just have to, you can't ever get rid of danger, but I think you can limit danger, right? And so if I know football is a big risk, maybe we're going basketball and baseball.
Right.
That's all I'm saying,
There you go. Smash the like button for
with your iron
for
rod.
a reasonable position for Kim being the good mother. Yeah, don't do it for me. Do it for Kim.
Kim, how are you?
So I wanted to give you the medical side. And so, Tony, do you have that? A little bit of what the apparent position is of the medical community looking in on this and what produced this. We'll run a little bit of it just to give you a sense of it, and then we'll move on.
Neck injury. So the cameras in replay, they show that he's standing and he's adjusting his face mask, and then all of a sudden he drops to the ground, goes down and somewhat backwards, and his limbs go limp as well. And this is classically what happens when someone's not getting enough blood flow to their brain. When you see the replay, and especially when they finally announced that they were doing CPR, I immediately put two and two together as to what was going on. So when the Bengals wide receiver was lowering his shoulder, it went right into the chest of Damar Hamlin. That's a blunt force chest injury. And when it gets to the point where it's so severe, where someone actually has a cardiac arrest, the first thing that comes to my mind is
commotio cordis,
where essentially that blunt force trauma to the chest is a shock wave, essentially, and that resets the electrical conduction system of the heart, where the heart literally loses all electrical activity. From a medical standpoint, what is interesting, what a lot of people might be wondering is, well, in that moment, if he sustains a chest injury, a blunt force chest injury, to the point of causing his heart to stop, how is it possible that he was able to get up and then he collapses back down? So understand that the brain still is able to function for a certain amount of time, even without blood flow. It's just a matter of time catching up to him, where his brain was not able to get enough to the point where he wasn't getting enough oxygen, and the brain ceases, or at least stops working.
Yeah, and so there you have it. I mean, the important thing was the first part, although the second part was interesting to know why how the brain still functions. I see Steve, and we'll get to him in just a second. But the first part, just to be clear, speaks to the cardiac arrest, that it's an electrical thing going on inside us, right? And that violent contact at that specific moment, is the doctor's point, just happened to be insanely bad luck. And that's what produced the cardiac arrest. So he's in critical condition, and that's the list. Anything more, Kim, before I move on to Steve?
No, just we send our best wishes, and I hope that he recovers. But yeah, it's just a sad situation.
Yeah, and there's still no date for the game to resume, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I mean, beyond obviously the human tragedy and the human story is the first story, the most important story, but there is a bizarre and difficult situation the NFL finds itself in. I mean, yet another one. So they'll have to figure out if they want to extend the season or how they're going to do this. So that actually is a relevant point. So thank you for that, Albert. All right, Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
I want to bring him on now. Steve Moskowitz, in the Bay Area and California for over 30 years. He is an attorney as well as an accountant. I mean, he's got a guy who has your credentials. Should have a lot more attitude. You have a very approachable style. I don't know how you've maintained that through the years.
I never forgot that I was a New York cabbie.
That's it, kid. That's it. That's the thing. What was your biggest tip as a cabbie, Steve?
From a bartender that I picked up at closing and drove him a very short distance, and he gave me this huge tip. And in the neighborhood I dropped him off in wasn't so hot either. And I said, why are you giving me so much money? He said, because I work for tips too. I know how important it is. I will never forget that guy. And it's been many moons.
A lot of people who are in that business of working for tips, like service industry people, et cetera, they're the best tippers for just the reason you said.
And I have another story that the two stories come together. The bartender was the good story. The bad story was I picked up this passenger at the airport, drove him to this fancy mansion. He didn't treat me very nicely. Cabbie, carry my bags. Yes, sir. So I'm carrying these big, heavy bags, up this long path. And he must have his rock collection in him. And then when I get there, my tip, he hands me a coin. And I said, that's it. The guy was living in the mansion. I said, that's it? That's all you're going to give me? Oh, that's a lot of money. If you don't want it, I'll take it back. And those were my two examples of tipping when I was a cabbie that I will never, ever forget. So that's why when I'm in a restaurant, I always overtip because I know how important it is to that service.
Did you, you didn't hear this yesterday. I was talking about the fact that, wasn't it, Kim, was it the newspaper guy I was talking about yesterday, right? Here?
Yeah.
In the tip. So
yeah.
I have to say this real quick, Steve. So we overtip typically, I don't know, some situations we overtip, maybe whatever. But the newspaper guy is supposed to give him $10 to $15, I think, around Christmas. We give him $75. Okay, so we send him a check for $75. And I'm telling you, my paper, he does everything but bring in morning coffee with that paper. It's right there at the studio. And it's not easy. It's like it's a quarterback throw, perfect toss from the street, So to get it into the Mark Thompson compound. So it lands right there on the doorstep. So anyway, this year, I asked Courtney to find where the address is because it wasn't an envelope that was included. And we still haven't. So we haven't given him anything. And I'm telling you, Steve, I need a compass to find that paper right now. It is way at the far driveway where it connects to, I'm telling you, tipping matters, I guess is what I'm getting to.
It's the human condition. If you're dealing with decent people, there's an exchange. Somebody does something for John does something for Mary, Mary does something for John. It's nice. That's the human condition. That's the way it's supposed to be. And if people violate that very basic human law, there's consequences to violating natural laws. It's not just statutes that some legislature passes.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, I have to. So I've said, Courtney, we need to find that address and get that guy that money. Got to get back into his good graces. So this brings me to taxes, actually, and our conversations with you, Steve Moskowitz. When you are in a gratuity business, those gratuities have to be declared on some level, right?
Absolutely, but you may have expenses too. And here it is, the first business day of the new year, and I wish all of your viewers a happy new year. And I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions, but Mark, it is so common that people don't file tax returns. A year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and more. And usually the number one reason people don't file tax returns is because they didn't have the money to pay the first year. And then the second year rolls around and they still don't have the money. So, well, how can they file year 2 and they didn't file year 1 and then year 3 rolls around? And what happens is it becomes a lifestyle, a criminal-like lifestyle. I've seen it cause 2 suicides. I saw a little boy given up for adoption for it. I've seen countless businesses and marriages wrecked over this, and it doesn't have to be. So right now, it's the very beginning of tax season, the first business day of the year. I don't know if you want to call it a resolution or not, but if you haven't filed tax returns for years, make this the time to call me and say, hey, Steve, here's my situation. Let me tell you what we can do for you, and then let us give you your life back.
Yeah, I mean, it just, you're so right. And that puts such a dark detail on it, but that's the way it can haunt you to those dark places. So I recommend reaching out to Steve for even what you might consider a routine filing, because he can find things in your situation that you might not have been aware of that are wildly advantageous to you. Steve Moskowitz's 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. You can also find him online, MoskowitzLLP.com, Moskowitz, MoskowitzLLP.com. Let's talk next hour, Steve. Thanks so much. Steve Moskowitz. Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, I want to go to some news. Then we have a major announcement, I'm told, by Albert in the next half hour. So we'll get that going as well. Smash the like button for us. A thumbs up. If you're watching in replay, give us a thumbs up, please. And encourage subscribers. I'll also read some comments and even an email, if I can get to that. As well. The email is themarkthompsonshow@gmail.com. So we have much to do. Kim's news. We want to get to some weather as well. I'm sure that's in Kim's news too. And we continue on. Mark Thompson Show.
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report is sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. We begin with Kevin McCarthy, where right now there is a scramble underway for him to get enough votes to be the Speaker of the House. I thought I had a picture of him here, and yes, there he is. Kevin McCarthy. It's really we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but the vote is set to begin in the House, where a small group of conservative Republicans is threatening to vote no to deny McCarthy the 218 votes that he needs for failing to meet their demands. If he is not elected to the House's top post or on the first ballot, it would be the first time in a century that the Speaker has required multiple rounds of voting. So that is going on right now. We are keeping our eyes on that, and I will let you know if we have any movement or developments in that case. And of course, as Mark was mentioning, the family of Buffalo Bills player Damar Hamlin expressing gratitude for the love and the support shown for him during this time. In a statement, his family said they are deeply moved by the prayers, kind words, and donations from fans around the country. Hamlin is reported to be in critical condition after suffering cardiac arrest and collapsing on the field during the Bills game against the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night. And as Courtney reported here on this very show, here's the man under arrest for accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students. He has now arrived in court in Pennsylvania. Brian Kohberger's extradition hearing scheduled for today. And according to his public defender, Kohberger wants to return to Idaho to prove that he is innocent of the murders that took place in November. It is a humanitarian crisis in Florida. The number of migrants arriving in the Florida Keys, again, the humanitarian crisis, that is what Monroe County Sheriff Rick Ramsey said after about 500 migrants recently came ashore in various spots in the Keys. Ramsey added the problem is being made worse by a slow response from U.S. Border Patrol. And speaking of weather, the next quote, atmospheric river due into the Bay Area tomorrow. The National Weather Service says the new atmospheric river storm will likely be as powerful or more so than last weekend's storm that caused widespread flooding and damage, as you can see here in San Francisco. The NWS says to expect similar impacts. Soil remains saturated. That means we get a higher risk of flooding and shallow mudslides. Today is the day to prepare. There are sandbag stations in most cities around the Bay Area. Strong winds will be expected too. Gusts up to 35 to 55 miles per hour. Stronger gusts in the mountains could lead to downed trees and power lines. Once again, we saw that in the Santa Cruz Mountains and elsewhere. The rain is expected to continue throughout the weekend. Now, here's a bit of a creepy story. This guy, CEO of a Bay Area tech company, under arrest for allegedly spying on a woman in a restaurant bathroom.
What?
35-year-old, Eduardo Moreno is the CEO of Seadrone. That's a Palo Alto-based company that offers underwater inspections. Well, the incident occurred at Panera Bread in Mountain View. The victim says she saw Moreno stick his head underneath the bathroom stall. He ran when she screamed, but she chased him down. And that, she says, is when he grabbed her phone and pushed her down. He eventually returned to the Panera Bread, where he was tackled by a group of bystanders. So yeah, he's now under arrest.
Oh my gosh. So he didn't have he's the CEO of a tech company, but he didn't have some high-tech way to spy on women in the bathroom. He just stuck his head under the stall.
What are you doing, buddy? That's gross.
I mean, it's so wrong.
Why are you yelling?
Anyway, all right. Well,
and lastly, we have the comet situation, which is kind of cool. Yeah, I love it. It's a meteor shower kicking off the new year overnight between today and tomorrow. The American Meteor Society said the let me help out with this. Quanritids? That's what it's called, is one of the strongest meteor showers, the Quanritids. In the northern hemisphere, you'll be able to best view it late night to dawn. So it'll look like a zillion shooting stars if we're lucky. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve, who we adore, has put his knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses alike. So if you need help with your taxes, Steve is at 888 Tax Deal. He's also at MoskowitzLLP.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
No, that's great news.
There's no music.
Can we just have a little something?
There you go.
My favorite,
an
actually.
entire radio station to silence him.
Yes.
And now,
Yes.
he's here.
God, it's
Ladies
so
and gentlemen, Mark Thompson.
Thank you very much.
Do you feel it? It's the Mark Thompson Show.
Thank you, everybody. It is great to be with everybody. I'll tell you, we've had a very busy morning. I am coming off a big morning show in Los Angeles. I made an appearance on the morning show to spread the good word about this show. And I saw in the chat, I thought it went okay, but I have to say, then you get the chat breakdown, and then I realized, oh, maybe I didn't do this, I didn't do that. They did,
You look really nice. Are you wearing a new jacket?
Right now, no. This is I have 400 of these gray hoodies.
Okay.
I'm kind of like Zuckerberg, I guess, although mine are not the expensive kind that he wears. But they made me up, And
Okay.
actually, the makeup person, it was really fun to go back there just to give you a minute on it, because I used to shoot a series called Guinness Primetime, where people came on and they set Guinness records on that same lot and right in the next studio. So I was there, and all the tech guys I knew. It was weird. It was great. It was weird good, like going to a Thanksgiving dinner where everybody's been invited who like, this is your life. And then the makeup person, this is what made me think about it. She was the makeup person from my old Guinness show. And so we did 3 seasons of that show, and we did it together, and we did it on the Judge Judy set.
That's cool.
Well, here's the cool part. There was no part of the so I used Judge Judy's dressing room. It was this expansive dressing room. And, it was like a living room type thing. There was no evidence it was Judge Judy's. Okay. They just told me it was Judge Judy's. So when Judge Judy isn't shooting, they use the stage for other things like our show, right? So I'm sitting there, and I am just doodling around as I'm on the phone at the desk. And I open one of the drawers, and there is the first evidence that it's Judge Judy's dressing room. And that evidence comes in the form of a stack of 8x10 glossies of Judge Judy. All right.
Did you take one?
Oh, I did better than that. I started signing them as though I was Judge Judy.
Listen to me. I don't want to hear you.
I would write things like,
don't cross Judge Judy.
Meet me in my chambers for an out-of-court settlement. I wrote that kind of thing, and I just went through the whole stack. I might have done 35 or 40 of this because I had nothing to do. It was like hours before my next shot. So that was the fun. So it was that same stage. Okay. So it was really weird this morning, and they were so nice. I mean, it was really nice of them to have me on because I wanted to get the word out. And we talked about KGO. We talked about how KGO ended. I told that story again, which, people who watch this have heard probably, countless times. They're sick of it, but it was still interesting, I think, also to a Southern California audience. And then as we try to grow this channel, it's important to get that word out. So
speaking of which, I'm trying to clean out my office, my Mark Thompson show studio, and I came across this. I don't know if you can see it. This is an old KGO street reporter mic.
Wow.
And I mean, look at how that thing is like, oh God.
That's great. That's like an artifact. That's
right?
terrific.
I'm like, I don't want to throw this away. I don't know what to do with it. I'm trying to showcase it somewhere in here.
Auction it off is what you should do. Yeah. This is the audience that might want it, But anyway, that's really, really cool. It's funny you say that because I'll tomorrow show you some stuff that I found that's also KGO stuff. And one of the things is huge. It's a banner that they gave me that says KGO 810 on it. And it reminds me of our banner, So
speaking of which, Joe Box, if you're listening, I'll get a hold of you today. Here's something else in my studio. For a while,
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
Yeah.
For a while, we had to report using an old iPhone you just hold the phone up to someone's,
Oh, that's cool.
and interview them. So this is my old KGO phone. They're going to call and want it back now. They're going to see it on here.
That's
Yeah.
great.
I mean, it's now defunct. I don't even think it
don't
works
think
anymore.
Go on it. Yeah, with KGO
Yeah.
News, is they're not even doing it anymore. But
There are all kinds of little KGO artifacts in this office.
but look at that. Yeah, love the KGO mic, says Debbie. I think it is sort of it's a cool thing.
Yeah.
It's an artifact. Yeah.
That's an old one.
Yeah. So I do want to get to another story or two, but I also wanted to get to a major announcement. Albert, do we have a major announcement? I think it's related to
major announcement from the Mark Thompson Show.
Right.
A major announcement.
This is so Shadow's coming on, and we have to ask him about the end of the major announcement thing, because that is pretty. Just the end is particularly what does he do? That sound, the gurgling sound.
It's like an exhaust pipe or dragon breath. I don't know what it is.
I have to know what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah, there it is. Anyway, don't mean to take away from the major announcement itself, which is quite special. Albert, it's related to merch, is it not? There's a special sale at the merch site at getmarkmerch.com. This was brought on by the discussion of hydration yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The merch people jumped on and they said, we are going to do a special turbo merch sale on the Mark Thompson Advanced Hydration System. Now, this looks like a water bottle, but it is the Mark Thompson Advanced Hydration System. So we encourage everyone to consider this. It's pretty amazing.
It's fantastic.
I mean, we discussed yesterday, if you don't drink enough water or fluid, you could die. Or
that's exactly what we were talking about. And
we're trying to avoid death for people,
ridiculous.
Right? Well, it's solid. And use the coupon code Stay Hydrated at checkout, and they'll give you 20% off the Mark's Advanced Hydration System. So if you want Mark's Hydration System, the Advanced Hydration System, the finest design, go to getmarkmerch.com. And again, use the coupon code Stay Hydrated, all one word, Stay Hydrated, and they'll take 20% off the off checkout.
Nice.
Right. Yeah. So there you go. That's
This has been a major announcement.
okay.
On the Mark Thompson
This has
Show.
Yes, the gurgle lets you know it was actually a major announcement. So there you have it. So much to do. I'll mention David K Johnston, the Pulitzer Prize winner. Right after 11 o'clock, we'll talk about the battle in the GOP right now between Kevin McCarthy and other members of the GOP coalition as they try to put that together. And again, I come back to the fact, and I want David to weigh in on it, of course, the fact that there is not really an ideological problem that they have with each other. It's not a political philosophy problem. It's a power grab. And it'll be very interesting to see how it turns out. They're doing the voting today, right, Kim? They voted once, I believe, already.
Apparently, according to CNN, Kevin McCarthy appears to suffer defeat on the first vote.
Yeah.
So this will end up being a situation where there may be multiple votes here. Will have to be. Yeah. So it's poised to go to a second ballot for the first time in 100 years after Republican members rejected McCarthy's bid to be the Speaker of the House.
And the only other thing I'll remind you of right now, and then we really will discuss this with David K Johnston, is that, until you get that speaker in place, you can't do a bunch of stuff like putting committees together and putting the investigations together. You know how they want to get into Hunter Biden and Joe Biden, and, they want to impeach the head of Homeland Security. They want to impeach, they had a lot of stuff to do. There are a lot of ways to own the libs. We got to get on it. And we can't do it until we elect a speaker. So there's all of that still to come. Let's do some lawn disorder.
In the criminal justice system, the people,
pimps, addicts, thieves, bums, winos, girls who can't keep an address, and men who don't care,
are represented by two separate yet equally important groups.
A cop, a flatfoot, a bull, a dick, John Law, you're the fuzz, the heat, you're poison, you're trouble, you're bad news.
These are their stories.
Well, this also takes place at the Capitol, and this is related to the mob that stormed the U.S. Capitol. In the 2 years since that pro-Trump mob stormed the place, prosecutors have gotten guilty pleas a lot of the time. More than half of the rioters have been charged, and it led to a over 90% conviction rate. Dustin Thompson tried to beat those odds. Actually, it's 98% conviction rate, okay? Look, you have all sorts of things working against you if you're trying to fight the charges on this, right? You have contemporaneous social media posts, which are pretty much from everyone, meaning they post right away when they get in. Hey, I'm in, look at me. There was a pride about that does you in right away because there's evidence. Number two, there's video evidence. You've got evidence from badge cams. You've got evidence from all the different angles that it was shot. You have evidence from others' cell phone video. So there's so many ways to put you at the scene and actually specifically determine what your actions were that there isn't a lot of wiggle room here. The Justice Department has charged more than 900 people. They've gotten guilty pleas from at least 450. I mentioned the one, that Thompson guy. He's from Ohio, 38 years old, and he decided to try to plead not guilty. And he's serving a 3-year sentence now. That's what you're facing if you decide to go up against them for all the reasons I detailed and more. This is a jury trial, by the way, not a judge deciding this. Jurors sentenced that guy 3 years. By the way, he now that he's convicted and serving time, he talks to his wife regularly, twice a day, on an iPad. But aside from that, not in person. As I was saying, the Justice Department charged more than 900 people. They got guilty pleas from at least 450 of them. Crimes ranging from unlawfully parading in a Capitol building to assault, obstruction, and sedition. More than 180 rioters have been sentenced to jail time. In the days after the riot, federal investigators appeared to face a massive task tracking down the crowd of participants after law enforcement authorities that day let most of them leave without arrests, right? Many there, though, posted their own actions on social media, as I was saying, and all the other ways that they tracked them down and nailed them. About 36 cases have gone to trial, and all but one of them have resulted in convictions on at least one count. The conviction rate, which includes pleas, is higher than the Justice Department has ever gotten across all of its cases. The COVID-19 halted a lot of those trials. Remember, we kind of became frustrated with how long everything was taking. There was really an interruption in the whole judicial process because of COVID. But now there's going to be these Proud Boy cases going up, and they want to try them for sedition. Enrique Tarrio, it's seditious conspiracy included in all of this. The defendants have said their participation in the riot wasn't part of a premeditated plan that hinged on violence. So prosecutors have a high bar trying to prove that and get a conviction on sedition, because it requires them to prove that there was a conspiracy to attack the government. Now, you and I may look at this and go, wait a minute, there is evidence. There are all these communications prior to things. They went to Washington armed and ready to go.
Yeah.
That may be indeed the case, and they may prevail. But all of them were convicted of felonies that carry heavy sentences. 3 of them were acquitted of sedition charges already. That makes the Justice Department a little more concerned, and prosecutors are a bit anxious about actually making these charges stick. Prosecutors have suggested they might charge hundreds more in connection with the January 6th attack. And the investigation has taken over much of the federal courthouse in Washington, with multiple trials running at the same time and hearings in dozens of cases as well. An active grand jury inquiry is still underway. And Jack Smith, who's that special counsel, he's examining the role of Donald Trump and his senior circle, right? We've talked about that in great detail. So Mr. Trump, of course, calls the investigation an effort by political opponents to undermine him. And he suggested that if he wins the White House again in 2024, this is Trump speaking, he might pardon many of the rioters charged.
God,
Our
that
work
would
is
be
not done. I know.
outrageous.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
really is. It really is.
talk about riots in the streets. I mean, that's when people should protest. I'm not advocating rioting, but I could see it happening.
I mean, look, he already pardoned Bannon for the wall scam, right? And Bannon was one of the key guys that Trump was talking to at the time. And what's revealed in the committee stuff is what. Let me wrap this up, and then I want to get to the committee stuff, and I'll just give you 30 seconds on it, and then we'll talk to David K Johnston. So that's the plan. But I wanted you to know what was happening with the heads of the Proud Boys, and also that remarkable conviction rate, but how the Justice Department is now even going for a tougher brass ring into trying to make these sedition charges stick with these guys from the Proud Boys. That's Law and Disorder for today.
Tune in again next time for more Law and Disorder on the Mark Thompson Show.
All right, that's it. Let's roll. Hey, let's be careful out there.
Smash the like button like a boss. Hit
with
a
your iron rod.
thumbs up if you're watching in replay. If you're finding us for the first time, welcome. It's kind of like looking in on a radio show. I know that's what we do, but we're evolving it to new places. Even Kim's too. I've noticed. Yeah, you kind of got more visual elements. It's kind of cool.
I'm working on it.
Yeah.
I have a little camera issue. I think I'm a very white. Talk about a white lady.
Yeah.
I had to fix that, but we're
yeah.
That's all right.
Well, it's yeah. I mean, the thing about this is every day the lighting or the audio or something can sometimes be janky, or sometimes there are no problems at all. You just never know what you're getting. This is that world. But I was going to mention that, and then I'll just do this in the last 30 seconds. In those communications between Trump and others, Giuliani, Bannon among them, I mean, multiple communications leading up to January 6th and then on January 6th. There are all sorts of conclusions you can draw. Those details sit with the Congressional Committee, and the Congressional Committee report is going to be buried. It's not going to. There have been some releases of information, as you know. That's how we know a lot of what we know already. But the burying the congressional report is to protect many who were involved in closed-door testimony, and they're worried. These are just federal employees who are just doing their jobs, but they're worried now, committee members are, that in this current environment, they'll be doxxed, that a lot of their private information is going to get out there. It seems as though that's sort of the new political landscape. You go after people personally, and these are private citizens who don't make a lot of, the GSers, they're just government employees, a lot of them. And so to protect them, they pushed the report, and they pushed a lot of the supplemental information about evidence and names, these things that you might consider sort of redactable. They pushed them all to the White House, so that it's thought that Homeland Security in the White House will bury them. Now, if a Donald Trump or someone like that decided to come in and make an issue of it and go after political enemies, then maybe he could reveal those identities and a lot of those details. But for the moment, much of that will be buried away. All right, when we come back, David Cay Johnston, he's the Pulitzer Prize winner, best-selling author. Looking forward to talking to him. He was on with Chip this morning, but I will tell you how this was a different treatment of David Cay Johnston here than he received from Chip. Yes, we will get to that as we continue. Kim's News next. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister, and this report sponsored, of course, by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. The headline on SFGate today reads, "Threat to life likely as atmospheric river heads for the San Francisco Bay Area." Today, the calm before the storm, a lot of people getting the sandbags and clearing yards and getting prepared for the rain on the way in, but major damage is expected as a storm with very high winds heads toward the Bay Area. And of course, Kevin McCarthy just doesn't have enough votes to become the next Speaker of the House at this point. First vote, fail. On to the next round. Now, for the first time in 100 years, there will be more than one vote to select the Speaker of the House. This comes after a group of conservative Republicans threatened to derail his bid to become Speaker. The House will now continue to hold votes until a candidate receives a majority vote. And back to the situation with the NFL, where the NFL says it will not resume the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and Buffalo Bills. This after Bills safety Damar Hamlin collapsed on the field last night due to cardiac arrest. He remains hospitalized in critical condition. As to what will happen game-wise, the NFL sent out a tweet. They say they have made no decision regarding the possible resumption of this game at a later date either. So this continues. Speaking of injuries, this is actor Jeremy Renner, and he, of course, born in Modesto. He's out of surgery now after a snowplow accident happened on New Year's Day. TMZ reports Renner was plowing snow Sunday when the device ran over one of his legs. One of his neighbors, who's a doctor, put a tourniquet on the leg until paramedics arrived. Renner had to be airlifted to the hospital. Of course, he's best known for his role in Hawkeye and Mayor of Kingstown. Again, he is out of surgery, reports that he is still in critical condition. The outgoing New York congressman says he is being succeeded by a con man. Wow. George Santos won the seat despite admitting lying about his work experience and his background. In an op-ed for the New York Times, Democrat Tom Swayze said Santos abused the public trust even before he got into office. And
That's
Ford's
the new political pastime is abusing the public trust, I think.
Yes, well, that's no big deal anymore, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
beat it to death.
Check
We'll
that
be
box.
all right. It's okay. Everybody look away. Ford's F-Series pickup truck is America's best-selling vehicle. The motor company said sales for the F-Series truck passed 640,000 last year, meaning at least one was sold every 49 seconds in 2022. That makes it America's best-selling truck for the 46th straight year, the best-selling vehicle for 41 years. Again, that's the Ford F-Series pick-me-up truck. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes and tax times are coming up, call Steve at 888 Tax Deal. You can catch him online at moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
You found the Mark Thompson Show. You lucky mother.
Yes, please. That smattering of recorded applause is overwhelming. Thank you very much. I am delighted that you did find us. You can find us here 10 to noon every day live, but you can also watch the replay of this show. It's available forever, in the technological forever, whatever that is. And you can find it right here, The Mark Thompson Show. Please subscribe, because subscriptions are what this is about. And please like the show, which is also what this weird YouTube world is about. These are all the logarithmic things that I didn't have to think about when I just had a radio show that I now have to think about now that there's a YouTube show. And lastly, I need to ask for contributions. We're an independent show. We need to pay everybody and, buy things for the show. That way we can keep going. TheMarkThompsonShow.com is where you do that. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. You'll click contribute. There's a Patreon link. There's also a PayPal link, and we're looking at other ways that like Venmo and that. That's what it'll look like. You can contribute through Patreon, contribute through PayPal, TheMarkThompsonShow.com, and it'll go to our Polaris Media or whatever the holding company, which just holds the money and make sure that we'll get to get to use that money to keep the show on the air, frankly. And I told you, I'm not taking any money right now. We're just trying to get some momentum going. Hopefully, once there's momentum, there'll be finances for everybody and an economy that keeps us all going. But for now, we just need to stay on the air. So thank you. TheMarkThompsonShow.com. I will tell you about the YouTube thing a little bit later. We are making some progress with YouTube. So those super stickers and super chats may come back soon. Now, without any further delay, I welcome this guy. He has a major announcement, and he made it at DCReport.org. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, 4-time best-selling author, friend of the show. And so excited to have him join us on Tuesdays. David K. Johnston, everybody. Hi, David.
Hi there.
First of all, I will tell you that I saw you with Chip Franklin this morning, and, I felt, this is just, he did something with David K. Johnston, Kim, that I was not at all happy with, and I'll tell you what it was. He made David K. Johnston, who is a treasure, a national treasure, and I'm not just exaggerating for humor.
To be respected and revered.
He made him share time with some guy from the Washington Post. It was outrageous. I'm telling you.
Why are you yelling?
I'm saying that I was bothered by it. David, far too gracious. Didn't seem at all bothered by it, but I was bothered by it, David. Anyway, welcome here. You will never have to share the spotlight here, David.
Why are you yelling?
You are the guy. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
You did make an announcement at DCReport.org. This is the website that you co-founded, and you are pushing away from your daily work at DCReport.org, but the website continues, and the journalism related continues as well.
Right, yeah. Effective January 1st, I stepped back as publisher and editor-in-chief, and my best friend David Crook, who used to be in San Francisco and was a high-level editor at the Wall Street Journal. He created the remarkably profitable and journalistically fantastic Wall Street Journal Sunday that existed for 15 years and had, I think, 11 or 12 million circulation at its peak. It was 5 or 6 times that of the regular Wall Street Journal. And David stepped back also. I just turned 74, and there comes a point when you need to step back. So I'm going to continue to teach at Syracuse University College of Law, part-time. I've been there since 2009. I'm going to focus on my books, and my wife and I are going to spend a lot of time traveling.
Well, that's great. I know you spent some time, yeah, exactly, recently doing that, and it was clearly rewarding. But you're leaving out one thing that you're going to continue doing. What is that, David?
Being on your show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Indeed.
I feel a little bit jilted in the sweatshirt department this morning. Usually we've got some type of college or we represent some type of higher learning institution. And today there's nothing.
It's just a tighter shot, I think, today.
Well, underneath it says, but I just spilled some food on it, Ocean City, New Jersey. Where
all right.
All right.
I grew up in D.C., so we'd go over there to the Jersey Shore occasionally, and during the summers. All right, let's put you to work here, please. There is a fight within the GOP congressional crew. I was saying before, this isn't over a political philosophy or an ideology. These are, I think, just it's a power grab. And Kevin McCarthy wants it. And in the first vote, he didn't get it. I wonder if you could give us a breakdown.
Well, 100 years ago today, I believe it was today, but 100 years ago, we had a candidate for speaker vote that failed, and it just happened again. 19 Republicans voted against Kevin McCarthy, who comes from a district near Bakersfield. And I think that we may end up having a lot of fun watching the House Republicans over the next 2 years, because you remember when Republicans called themselves the party of ideas? We're all old enough to remember that. They don't have any ideas. Kevin McCarthy's only idea is what he said this morning, literally, I'm entitled to be speaker. Entitled. What a stunning word for a Republican to use. One of the things I think might happen, and might, of course, implies doubt, is that the Democrats might agree to vote for some grown-up Republican. And the whole House gets to vote on who's speaker. And, of course, anybody could be speaker, Mark. We could put you up to be speaker.
Yeah, I like that so far.
But this is going to be fascinating to watch because McCarthy was totally tied up by such deep political thinkers as Boebert, Green, Getz, and Jim Jordan, and the name of the racist Gozar from Arizona. And I think it's just going to be great as entertainment, sad for the country, but great as entertainment to watch this clown show. And it also should make people appreciate why many of us, including historians, are saying that Nancy Pelosi was the greatest speaker in the history of the House. When she brought things to the floor, she always had the votes. She saved Obamacare that Obama would have lost but for Nancy Pelosi. She ran a well-running machine in the sense of making the machinery of government work. And there's nobody who is as skilled as she is in either party in the House.
You could argue that the Democrats,
79 or 80, so she really needs to step back.
Well, I mean, that's right. The coalition the Democrats had to put together was as frayed as this one. So I think you speak to what is a real ability to pull them together. I mean, the squad could, equate to, I think they have a foot in reality, and then those who, to whom you refer, don't have a foot in reality, but still they were breaking with the mainstream of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I think the squad is basically young people in Congress who are tired of decades from now, we'll get around to really resolving that. They're like, no, now we're going to do this now. And if they can get enough people to vote for candidates like them, there are a lot of things we can do now instead of in the future.
I wonder I'm sorry, go ahead, Kim, and then I have a question about what's practical.
A question just about what happens today. So the first vote McCarthy loses, they're on to a second round of voting. How does it work? Do they just keep punching through with these votes until a candidate emerges? And if not McCarthy, then who?
Yeah, the woman whose name I can't recall at the moment, another reason to step back, who is the clerk of the House, is for now the presiding officer. And she will decide how many times they vote. I would expect maybe 3 rounds today, possibly 4, and then they'll break. They'll do a lot of behind the scenes horse trading overnight. The most likely outcome for this is that somebody who is universally respected, other than the really far out there people I mentioned a moment ago, like Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, will end up becoming the speaker.
Oh God!
Somebody, even if necessary, Democrats could vote for. But for now, the Democrats are just going to sit back and go, "Oh, this is great for us."
Well, when you say horse trading overnight, does that mean this is where they say, "What do you give me for my vote?"
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Come on. That's what goes on in politics all the time. We used to do it with pork, and then Newt Gingrich and his crowd got this fascinating idea 25 years ago. Well, we should ban pork. In the Pennsylvania legislature, they call it walking around money. I think the idea of every member of Congress gets X dollars to designate they want spent in the federal budget sounds fine to me. We learn a lot about it, but you have to designate. You have to say, okay, this is my $1 million or $100 million I get to spend in the program I want, and you have to publish a list. I'm all for that.
Well, any sort of transparency when it comes to money would be welcome. The reality is that I think a lot of these people are in this business now and are even extracting concessions from McCarthy because they want to maintain a role in the House so that they can continue to fundraise. I think
some of these people apparently asked to be made committee chairman in return for their vote, and that's a bridge too far even for McCarthy. And McCarthy still might put together a coalition, but if he does, his job is about as safe as that of someone standing on the end of a plank. One big wave and you're over.
Yeah, they've really asked him for a lot. They've asked him for the continued exposure of the speaker to be voted out. And
at a request of 5 members.
Yes.
I mean, no confidence votes are fine, but 5 members can bring a no confidence vote. That's, The fundamental problem here is that the Republicans don't have an ideology anymore. Their ideology at most recently was, we're for whatever Donald Trump wants. But they don't have one. Tax cuts, perhaps they don't even have a tax cut plan. Remember, for years, we have to repeal Obamacare and replace it. They never had a replacement. They have not done the hard, boring work of governing. And we don't see that. The public thinks that this is all, I just get together and do something. It's like thinking that you can run a giant corporation with a handful of people. There are thousands of people who work at General Motors and Ford and Hewlett Packard and other companies that make those companies work. And they do serious work. But we've created this cartoon notion that Washington doesn't really do any work. And that's just not true. They do lots and lots of very detailed work that requires enormous specialized knowledge.
They also wanted to gut the Office of Congressional Ethics. I don't know how, when you make that a priority, yeah, they literally, that was one of their demands that McCarthy had to accede to.
That's your platform? Okay.
Yes, yeah. We're corrupt, but at least we're upfront about it.
Exceed, you're right, is a ding word. So I wanted to ask, David, you talk about Democrats sitting back and just watching this clown show. What is the practical effect of not having a speaker? There are some significant things. They want to get all these investigations on a Hunter and Joe and impeach this person and that. None of that can happen until they get a speaker, right?
Yeah, but we're talking about a few days probably. While they figure out how they're going to resolve this problem. I mean, I don't think the time level is significant. They absolutely say that they're going to, go after Hunter Biden. Well, Hunter, one of the things people forget about Hunter Biden is that every U.S. attorney, 89 of the 90, was replaced when Biden came in. He left the guy in Delaware there, and they told him, you're free to pursue your investigation of Hunter Biden. You can go after my son. And there's nothing Biden has done since then indicating he has in any way influenced the Justice Department whatsoever, whereas we know Trump did all the time. He talked about doing it. And so if they've got something on Hunter Biden, have at it. They want to impeach the now departed Anthony Fauci. Okay, I mean, do this. Go ahead and do this. Hold hearings on it. You're going to find out, unlike all the lies being told, he doesn't have billions of dollars. He's not secretly on the Chinese payroll. He hasn't been taken over by reptilian aliens and just crazy stuff. I mean,
that doesn't mean.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
The best thing that could happen to the Democrats is for the Republicans to just be 2023 Republicans.
I mean, I think the last thing on that point, I wonder if you agree, is that it appears, based on midterms and polling and that sort of thing, and the polling that seems to have corresponded with the midterm results, Americans are kind of tired of that stuff. I mean, I get that there is a portion of America that wants to, lash Fauci to the stern or whatever, but the reality is most Americans are kind of over it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And one of the stories of this election that political scientists will eventually, in a year or three, give us detailed reports on is the Democrats lost their majority because the New York State Democratic Party, I live in Rochester, New York, the Democrats in New York State lost 5 seats. That's the margin that the Republicans have. And they lost them through the most Bush League, amateur hour, incompetent, don't know how to play grown-up, clean politics, because the Democrats have had such a hold on Albany for so many years. We ended up with people like the unbelievably arrogant Andrew Cuomo, who made enemies left and right, and finally, the tables turned on him. And there's a really powerful lesson there about you need to pay attention to your constituents. You need to pay attention to the needs of your constituents. And playing politics is fun, but if that's all you do, then you're not accomplishing anything, and the voters will eventually slap you around.
I do hug and kiss people casually.
Yes, that's right. That's the aforementioned. Right.
It's not about how you feel.
Yeah, right. Kim, did you
Imagine,
David?
I
Yeah,
was just
go.
what he was saying. Just imagine that you actually have to do your job and pay attention to the people who elected you. I mean, what a shocker. Do you think that there's something that the GOP wants from McCarthy? Or is there a big ask, or is it a bunch of little asks for districts around the country?
I mean, no, I don't think so. And
It's not even for districts, is it, David? It really seems as though it's control.
well, McCarthy has always wanted to be speaker, but if you look at his record, there's no indication he's forcing. I mean, whatever you think of Paul Ryan, he was very clear about what he wanted. We have to get rid of Social Security. We have to get rid of Medicare, things like that, and have a bigger military. Nancy Pelosi had a very clear agenda. She wanted to move the country towards universal health care, which we haven't reached yet. She wanted to go after discriminatory policies that are baked in against women, minorities, Native peoples, etc. And she, at the same time, was very friendly to business. But there's nobody in the Republican House leadership who has any reputation. And the guy the Republicans may run for president in 2 years, Governor Ron DeSantis, when he was a member of the House, there were Republicans who said that he gave an empty suit a good name. And that's how vapid he was. This is a guy who's now going to investigate, the CDC and vaccines at the state level. I mean, and wants to make sure no child ever sees a textbook that says, oh, by the way, human beings used to own other human beings. He'd much prefer that we think these were guest workers who came here seeking opportunity they didn't have in Africa.
Well, there is the discourse is just about owning the libs. I mean, there's just so much of it that is that. And so that's sort of become the one who can own the libs the hardest is king or the ruler. And it just seems as though there's a lot of that these days in American politics. DCReport.org is where you can find David's work. And even as he steps back from daily work there, I know you're still going to have a hand in things, and there's still some great journalism and great takes going on there. I love that you have an environmental beat that's being done. I mean, the financial breakouts that are done there at DCReport.org, a lot of stories that just don't make it to mainstream media.
Right. And I think our new publisher, who's been a friend of mine for more than 40 years, was the Disney Studios executive behind Dead Poets Society, Good Morning Vietnam, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, lots of other successful movies. I think he has the executive capacity to grow this, raise more money, and attract people. And I hope he does. I mean, I hope he goes way beyond where my friend David Crook and I went with the organization.
Last question is just about independent journalism of the sort that we're talking about when it comes to DCReport.org and others. And we find ourselves, having to do that money raise all the time if people want to support the show just in this little world. As you watch major papers, the LA Times, the New York Times, the Chronicle, and many others, the Merc, they become sort of, sadly, just not as much in the way of money they can make. And as a result, their product and the amount of paper you get, the amount of number of articles, the amount of journalism that can be done, just to extend the question, is more limited. And so that brings me to the independent journalism and what its future is. Do you have a take on that, David?
I do. Let me point out, I think the New York Times, which has more journalists today than when I left almost 15 years ago, is a unique and unusual circumstance, and they're doing well. They churn out investigative pieces every week, which when I was there, that was unheard of. We do a couple of big lifts a year.
Yeah,
but
the others. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the LA Times, for example, when I worked there for 12 years, a great newspaper, really shriveled. Well, it's come back, but it's also dependent on the largesse of its owner, Dr. Patrick Cheong-Soon, and I don't know how long he'll decide to dip into his pocket to subsidize the paper. But on the others, Philadelphia Inquirer, the San Francisco Chronicle, et cetera, they're really just very thin. There was a point at which the Long Beach Press Telegram Long Beach, California has more people living in it than Miami. A couple of years ago, the Long Beach Press-Telegram had one reporter. I kid you not, one reporter. And they were trying to hire 8 others. You need 9 reporters to cover a city of more than 500,000. So the model of newspapers is broken. All the classified ads, which were unbelievably profitable, they're gone. The display ads.
You don't like to think of papers essentially being propped up by classified ads, but you're right.
You know, a newspaper is a place that brings buyers and sellers together.
Sure.
And people like me are the carnival barkers who say, hey, come here and see this, and come inside the tent. So there's a real need for a new model. And I think the model we need is separate endowments. We have several foundations like the Park Foundation in Ithaca, New York, that support news organizations that make unrestricted grants. It's a lot of money. You know, real news is expensive. I did a feature that ran in the feature section of the LA Times 35 years ago. And an editor wanted something. And I looked at him and said, that's going to cost you $10,000 in expense account money. And he looked at me and said, I don't care. That wouldn't happen today. It was, by the way, ended up being technically one sentence, but it was in a paragraph. So one paragraph, $10,000 for that one paragraph.
Today they won't authorize a FedEx.
Yeah, it'd be very difficult to do something like that today at almost any paper. The New York Times, they're still spending money like crazy because they've got it, because of their unique position. And
I think the Washington Post probably as well. Probably David helped a bit by I think Trump helped the Post and New York Times. Yeah,
and some of those digital subscriptions and other things, they may fade away. But the way to do this is permanent charitable capital devoted to supporting news organizations, and then making unrestricted grants or long-term grants for specific things. Like where I live, it would be really great if we could get a funded city government reporter. There are city councils in this country in cities with 2 and 3 and 400,000 population who have not had a reporter, except for some minor neighborhood publication, sit through a meeting in years. And you know who loves that? All the crooks, the people who want to make money off government through crooked behavior. And sooner or later, taxpayers are going to wake up and go, oh, that's not so good. The other underlying problem, Mark, is deeper and can't be solved quickly. 54% of American adults, more than half, read at 6th grade level or below. 1 in 5, 20%, read at 3rd grade level or below. This is a severe decline in reading skills compared to, say, 40 or 50 years ago. It's a result of our not properly funding and education and demanding that students perform, not teachers, students perform. And so if you can't read above 6th grade level, even an ordinary community newspaper is going to be difficult. Read the New York Times, that's a specialized skill, frankly. You have to learn how to do it, and you're going to be an educated person in all likelihood. But this loss of reading skills in the long run will be disastrous to the American economy. And remember, innumeracy is rampant. Far more people are innumerate than illiterate. So
numeracy is a ding word. I'd like to get you back, David, to discuss this in greater detail. I mean, to really focus on American education and what's happened. This is such a great point you're making, and you're making it, of course, at the end. We're out of time, but I really wonder if we could make that the front and center thing we speak of, because the wealthiest nation, we should have the best educated populace, and it just isn't the case, you know.
Well, in 2 weeks, because my wife and I are going to Disney World next week.
Oh, have fun.
Yeah,
and I'll see you in 2 weeks, pal.
2 weeks it is. David K Johnston, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Happy retirement. We'll look forward to you hanging out here a little bit more.
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Use Mark Thompson.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, we've got Kim's News. There is an atmospheric river that is on our doorstep. Regardless of where you are in California, you are likely to endure it on some level. Central Valley, Sierra, Northern California, Southern California, all of us will be affected. Kim's news, and then when we come back, Albert, what are we doing when we come back? Do we have something?
Okay.
Albert,
Good stuff.
We have a That's Rich we didn't get to yesterday.
Oh, that's right. We have That's Rich. Don't say we didn't get to it yesterday. It makes it sound like it's some holdover, Albert. We have a fresh That's Rich. Isn't that what you mean, Albert?
Well, we were pretty jam-packed yesterday with other important news, so we'll get to this one today.
All right,
Albert, thank you.
All right, very, very good. Smash the like button like a boss.
Smash it with your iron rod.
And don't forget the Get Mark merch site is going. Do you want to do Steve? Can we do Steve after the news? Could Steve? I hate to
take him before. Don't keep him waiting.
Okay, we don't like to keep Steve waiting because he's our sugar daddy. To be perfectly honest about it. Steve Moskowitz, everybody. He is our exclusive sponsor. We like to spread the news about Steve because Steve offers a real service. Over 30 years in the Bay Area. Hey, when you were starting in the Bay Area, Steve Moskowitz at moskowitzllp.com, when you were starting, was it hard to get the business going? I mean, you weren't the only tax guy going, even though you are so credentialed. It had to be tough to get the level of
momentum. When I first came to San Francisco, it was to take my fancy advanced law degree specialization in tax. The law school that I went to on opening day welcomed us all to San Francisco, told us to get our fancy advanced tax law degree specialization in tax, and then go anywhere but San Francisco because there was too much competition, and you guys are all starting out, and experienced guys from all over the country come here. You have no chance against them. Go away. So I thank them for their sage advice and counsel. And I opened up my own little practice. I didn't have any money. Basically, when I moved here from New York City, one of my buddies came over to my apartment in New York, and I'll never forget what he said to me. He says, "Steve, refugees have more possessions than you do." So my
treatment in a loving way, Steve. Right.
Well, it was New York,
Yeah.
It was factual.
Sure.
And, I came out to California and, with my big hopes and dreams. And then what I would do is I would talk to people about their taxes. And I would just ask them, a few questions. And I say, well, did you consider this and this and this? Well, no, I never heard of that. And then we'd start talking. And I said, well, let me do the return. Let me do this or that. And that's how I started out the practice, just simply by talking to people. And then when I grew a bit, I became an after-dinner speaker. But again, it was basically what I'm doing now. I talk to people and I listen to them and say, well, have you considered X? Well, what is X? I never heard of X. Oh, well, let me tell you about X. And, by the way, if we did X, that would save you all this money. And then they became a client. And that's how I started out. And I guess I'm still doing the same thing because now, instead of talking to somebody in an elevator or someplace else, I would do that. And, also I took a job as a professor at night, but my students were all advanced students. My students were middle-aged professionals. It wasn't like, some kids. And, they were interested in some of the stuff that I was talking about, and they became clients. And I've not taught a class for, probably 30 years now. But I still have former students come back and they remember some of the stuff that I told them. So the bottom line, it was just, just exactly what we're doing now, talking about taxes, making people aware. Because if you're not aware of something, how could you ever seek it out? Which is, the problem with something like a Yellow Pages, back when they had Yellow Pages, where you have to know to look up something. If you don't know that exists, you're not going to look it up. And that's
it's what we tell people about, just Googling some of the stuff that we talk about. It's just not sufficient. Pick up the phone and call Steve and ask him about it. 888-TAX-DEAL, 888-TAX-DEAL. One of the things I like about these conversations, in contrast to maybe what we did on the radio or whatever, is that people can get to know you a little bit as a person and get to know a little bit of the philosophy that underpins your interest in taxes and helping clients. And then they can get into all the different advantages, which we've detailed as well, and we'll continue to detail, that you can provide them. So it's 888-TAX-DEAL. Do call Steve. Steve's so approachable. His organization can handle anyone, anywhere in California, across the country, 888 tax deal. Also, MoskowitzLLP.com. You want to go to the website. That's always a great way to get in touch with them anytime, day or night. MoskowitzLLP.com. Steve, thanks so much. Thanks for supporting the show. And it's always good talking to you, my friend.
My pleasure. I so much enjoy and appreciate being part of it.
Happy New Year, my friend. All right.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Kim, we're going to do some news while we ask people to smash the like button with thumbs up. There's also that Get Mark merch sale that's going on. I'll remind you before the end of the show. Kim's news. We'll review the. Oh, there it is. Yeah, that's the Mark's hydration system. If you want a discount on the Mark Thompson hydration system, it's the advanced hydration system. It's at getmarkmerch.com. No other hydration system should be accepted.
No.
The Mark Thompson advanced hydration system will provide you constant access to hydration, provided you fill it with water.
Why are you yelling?
Because I'm excited about the hydration system.
20% off today. And what's the code?
The code is what, Albert? The code, please. I like
the
how
code. Stay hydrated.
Albert, thank you.
Stay hydrated for 20% off. Okay.
The code is stay hydrated. All one word. You got to put it all one word at checkout. You'll get 20% off the Mark Thompson Advanced Hydration System. Well done, Albert. Got the full crew. We'll get to Kim's news and we will continue. Mark Thompson Show.
The Mark Thompson Show.
And I'm Kim McAllister on the Mark Thompson Show. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz at 888 Tax Deal. Flooding around the Bay Area is expected. The National Weather Service says threats to life likely during this next storm. It is due in tomorrow. Widespread flooding and wind impacts expected. ABC 7 in the Weather Center putting the storm at a level 5. I wonder if they had to duke that one out. Probably not. It's pretty clear that what we're going to see tomorrow is possibly a potential loss of power, high winds, localized flooding, downed trees, fallen power lines, and rock mudslides. Today, the calm before the storm, and the National Weather Service says, today is the day that we need to prepare. It is on at the House of Representatives, I'll tell you that. This is the first time in a century the Speaker of the House will not be decided in the first round of voting. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy failing to secure the 218 votes needed to be elected the new Speaker. That comes as a group of conservative Republicans voted against him instead casting votes for Arizona Congressman Andy Biggs and Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, among others. The chamber will continue to hold votes until a candidate receives a majority vote. Meanwhile, House Democrats have nominated Congressman Hakeem Jeffries for the minority leader position. In the NFL, the game between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals will not be resumed this week. Here's what we do know, though, so far, that the Bills safety Damar Hamlin suffered cardiac arrest during Monday Night Football yesterday, causing the game to be suspended. The Bills said Hamlin remains in ICU at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center, and he is in critical condition still. President Biden may be visiting the southern border later this month as part of a trip to Mexico. Senator John Cornyn says it's about time, adding it would be the least something to show that he cares. The Texas Republican also wants to put an end to what's called catch and release. And still struggles for Southwest Airlines. Unfortunately, they are being hit with a class action lawsuit over their holiday meltdown. A lawsuit filed in federal court in New Orleans accuses the airline of failing to give passengers refunds after thousands were stranded. Southwest canceled more than 15,000 flights during the busy holiday travel period, prompting a federal investigation. In Sonoma County, there is an escaped inmate on the run. This is an inmate that took off this morning. Authorities say John Avila left a loading dock at the Sonoma County Jail just after 8:30 this morning. The 39-year-old Petaluma man stands about 5'7", weighs about 210 pounds. He was last seen wearing a gray sweatshirt over a blue t-shirt and white pants over blue shorts. Avila had been in custody since November, allegedly for possessing a stolen vehicle, and now he is on the run. So police are looking for him.
Maybe going back home to Petaluma, where he's from.
I know. They put his picture up there. You got to keep an eye out for that guy.
Yeah.
They don't say armed and dangerous, but I don't know. There's a man in Thailand who has some explaining to do after leaving his wife stranded at a rest stop. What? He stopped to use the bathroom and then drove off, apparently thinking she was still sleeping in the back of the truck.
And this is a new hoax.
After driving 100 miles, he realized she had also gotten out of the car to use the restroom. He raced back to reunite with her. Yeah, 100 miles. Guy, you don't look at your wife or like acknowledge her for 100 miles? Apparently not.
Well, sounds like a good relationship to me, I think.
I thought you were asleep.
You're the right. At least you have high ground, right? Yeah.
Look at that, sitting on a suitcase. I don't think that's really her, but that's all right. This report sponsored by tax attorney Steve Moskowitz. For more than 30 years, Steve has put his tax knowledge to work for individuals and for businesses. So if you need help with your taxes, you can call Steve at 888-TAX-DEAL, or you can see it at the bottom of the screen there, moskowitzllp.com. I'm Kim McAllister on The Mark Thompson Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Shadow Stevens. This is the Mark Thompson Show. Keep it to yourself.
Who's Mark Thompson?
And a hearty good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, wherever you're watching or whenever you're watching. One of the magical things about our show is that we're on from 10 to noon live. You can participate in the chat, and you just can enter the chat, and you can text whatever in you want.
Why don't you just text it?
Like the old days. But there's a community that's formed around the chat. And, somebody made a point. I did the morning TV thing this morning and promoted the show, and they were so good to have me on at KTLA. Maybe tomorrow, Albert, we can run some of that, just a little bit, because I will break down what I didn't do and how I screwed it up.
I love that little play-by-play with Mark.
Yeah,
Thompson.
I think I don't know if I was funny enough. I don't want to be too glib. It's just, so somebody in the chat though mentioned this. I wish I could remember who it was, but I thought it was actually a good critique. They said he didn't mention that there's a community that's formed in the chat and even in the comments. Even if you're watching this now after the fact, there are comments there and everybody reacts to each other's comments. And we didn't have that at the radio station. We didn't have a way that people knew, Buck was the smart ass, and or that, Indirect was somebody who would constantly, you know what I mean? Or Lori, or Sue Ann, all these people who are a part of our family, they weren't seen by each other on the stage. On YouTube,
yeah, we'd see it on the text line, or they'd call in, and we would know the usuals. We would know the regulars, but now that it's
they
more
wouldn't know each other. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was one thing I didn't mention, and I would have liked to have mentioned how this is sort of an upgrade from the radio, and it's been a surprising upgrade. Like I didn't anticipate this. Yeah. So there's that. And then I don't know. I have to look at it to see, but. That was one comment I saw that I thought, oh yeah, that's true. I should have mentioned the community aspect of it. You're also trying to get in the, Google the Mark Thompson Show or go to the YouTube and put in the Mark Thompson Show, but you don't want to be obnoxious about it, right? You want people to come to this channel, you want them to subscribe, but you're trying to strike that balance and you don't want to be too obnoxious. And so I don't know. It was, I try to also just be real, like, say what's in my head at that moment, which is kind of the way I am here. Yeah. So anyway, that was this morning. So, what else do we have, Albert? Anything else before I do? That's Rich. Do I have to?
You didn't want to talk about the weather a little bit, or Kim had it in her news, but it's looking like a big storm to hit California.
it's pretty big time, right? Kim, they're talking about the
level 5.
Yeah, level 5.
Yeah, Spencer and crew have tagged this one a level 5 on the storm impact scale.
And, of all the things, and I've told you before what I think is, something of a marketing deal, when they name the storms and all that. Spencer was on the other day. We both agreed that that's just a stupid thing. They don't do it. It's AccuWeather, I think, back east or something, whatever. They go, Winter Storm Elliott is hitting the tri-state area. It's ridiculous. But the storm scale makes total sense. And I love that they have the intensity designated by numeric value. I think that's a great idea. It gives you a real number now that corresponds to an expectation. At when Kim says it's a level 5, or they're saying level 5, you go, wow, this is going to be powerful in terms of winds, rain, snow. And so when is it all going to begin in earnest?
They're saying that we have today to see if I can share the screen with the headline on SFGate.
Tomorrow, really, right?
Say we have today to prepare. So
Right.
tomorrow is the day when it's really going to start pummeling the Bay Area. I don't know the exact hour, but I know that tomorrow's the big day.
Well, we'll give you all the information as we can, in real time, as they say here tomorrow. But now I want to do something that we regularly do on this show. It is a segment that follows some of those in the world of, we follow the money, to be perfectly honest with it. I was going to say in the world of, the affluent, the wealthy.
Sure.
But we follow the money of all sorts. And so here it is. With a new open, just cut by Craig. He cut us a new open, I believe. Let's say here is That's Rich.
Who are they?
The top 0.1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich on the Mark Thompson Show.
I think that's a better open than the old open, Albert. I like this one. Yeah.
By the way, since we're just talking about the weather, can I note that
Yes.
ABC7 says this is the first time in the history of their storm scale that they have gone to level 5. Never before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's not a scary thing to hear, It's just
Yeah, this is
I am the bearer of all the news. Yes.
that is scary.
Yeah,
That really
it's
is.
the very first storm level 5. And apparently because the ground's already so saturated from the last one, it's not going to take a lot for more issues to be created by all this rain. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Great. Well, thank you. I feel much worse about a life that I already wasn't feeling so great about. But nonetheless, the news had to be related, and I thank you. You're compelled by the nature of the information to bring it forward at that moment.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. No need to apologize. I mean it. Good. I mean, I don't know what we can do. I mean, aside from taking some basic preparation, I don't know what we can do. Some people who are in flood.
Stay off the roads. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where we saw people really get hurt. Stay off the roads. If you know that Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night is when it's going to be the worst, stay off the roads. Just make plans if you can,
right.
unless you're an emergency responder, you're driving an ambulance, or for whatever reason you've got to be on the roads. Stay off. Stay home.
That's right.
And put the
Manage your
sandbags
time.
in and
Right.
look around your house and look at where the weak spots are, where the water could collect, and try to, get ahead of it. That's all you can do.
That is all you can do. So with that, Albert, do you think I need to run the open again now because we've been
Yes.
talking about the weather?
Albert, thank you.
yes, I agree. I just want to
I
hear it one
fully
more time
wrecked
also.
it. I did that.
You didn't wreck it, but we've just now come for. We were all participating in it. So, all right. Craig did such a nice job.
Who are they?
The top 0.1%.
What are they like?
These people are so posh and snobby, they're snotty.
That's Rich
They're
on the Mark
snotty.
Thompson Show.
Yeah. David Spade has just picked up a brand new spot. It's near the Sunset Strip. Oh, there it is. This will be fun. Because we'll show it to you and you'll tell us how much is it.
What is that on the left side there? Is that like some type of fountain or pool
Yeah,
with a walkway?
I think it is a water feature of some kind.
Okay.
He is a short walk from the Comedy Store on Sunset Boulevard, about a mile from the Laugh Factory. The SNL alum who starred in Tommy Boy, Joe Dirt, The Benchwarmers. He also has homes in West Hollywood and Beverly Hills. This place is the largest of the three. Before you guess, let me tell you a little something about it. It's 11,300 square feet. It has 3 stories across that 11,300 square feet.
Look at that.
Built by architect George Korstian last year. This is a new construction. The modern mansion was picked up by Spade with 6 bedrooms. How many bathrooms is a separate guess. Let's first guess at the price tag, then I'm going to guess at the number of bathrooms. Edward Lee is saying $30 million. Wow. 22 million, says Jim. Nobody should need 3 houses, says Eric.
I feel like that's the best way to beat LA traffic. Just have a house in every little district.
That's right. That's right.
I gotta go to Beverly Hills
How
today.
far are you from home? I'm always pretty close to home because I have homes everywhere. 45 million and 8 baths. Huge in Japan is guessing. 18 million, says Gil. 23 million, says Tom. Randy is saying 28 million. Ren says 26 million. Looks like a nice spot, great view.
It really has no personality, though. It's just...
It's a modern place, though. That's kind of the modern thing, you know. But you're right. It's modern, takes out a lot of the other texture.
Someone said it looks like a parking garage. It looks like an office complex to me.
Well, maybe. The price that he picked this up for, $13.85 million. Yeah. It kind of went for a little less than people were guessing. You're getting a lot of 28 millions and, picked it up for 13.5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 11,300 square feet. It has 6 bedrooms. It has a movie theater, a wine cellar, a gym. But how many bathrooms? 6 bedrooms. How many bathrooms?
Well, it has to be a bathroom for each bedroom plus a couple more. So I'm going to say 8.
All right. Kim goes 8. Has a 3-story elevator in the place. Also, I mentioned the wine cellar, gym, and movie theater. 4, says TG. 8 says, is it Edward? Julie says 7. 12 says Wes. 8 says Lulu. You go ahead and do it. If so, whoever's doing it, go ahead and put them.
Oh, sorry, I'll stop.
No, I wish you would. I mean that. Like, please.
We're clicking on all the things.
Please do. I'm not saying that to get you to stop. I'm saying it to get you to do it. That's great.
Yeah.
Randy says 9. 8 bathrooms, says Edward. 7 says Julie. Spade rode the market to wealth. Did he ever, says Chris. Wes says 12. I think 12 would be a lot. It's not impossible, but 12 might be a lot. Immortal Tiger says 8. We're guessing the number of bathrooms in David Spade's new place. It's $13.5 million, 11,500 square feet, wine cellar, gym, movie theater, and 3-story elevator. The answer is 6 bedrooms, 9.5 bathrooms.
Oh, Billy was the closest, I think.
Billy, you were half a bathroom off, but we will still award a prize to Billy, who gets...
You get nothing.
Sadly, that is in the show.
Nice bathrooms, too, though. Look at that view from the tub. Wow.
That is nice. Makes you want to sit in that tub. Yeah.
This looks like slippery floors and sharp corners to me. As someone who likes to partake in some drinking activities, this seems like a very dangerous.
Too many places to have an accident, you think?
I can see a slip and fall waiting to happen.
It's pretty nice, though, those bathrooms. Wow. Somebody mentioned, well, this is staged. We're not actually seeing the way it's going to look. That's probably true. But I don't know. It looks pretty nice, I think.
That's really hot.
No, Nikki likes
Should
it.
we guess how much the staging crew cost? I don't know if I could look up that exact number, but they did a great job.
They did a nice job. I think that's true. It's not easy to stage a place like that, 11,500 square feet.
Look at that. Outside with that view and the fireplace.
Outside, inside, with the thing over it. That's called a loggia, I think. I want to say it's called a loggia. Somebody look that up, I believe.
Is that the yoga positions those statues are in right now?
Loggia.
Right on the table.
I don't know. That looks highly questionable. Those statues, man.
Yeah, they're there is
those?
there's
Are
a
they doing sexy
symbol
things? What are they doing?
Yeah, has a kind of look to it, doesn't it?
Probably should get it off the screen.
I don't think so. I think it's probably anyway.
Like
That's
sumo wrestlers.
Yeah, it could be anything. It's innocent. Don't always read some. Wow, it does look like the Getty. It looks like some big, museum type place.
Yeah,
anyway, congratulations, David Spade. You've earned it. And that's rich.
More on how the other half lives
These people aren't just rich, they're crazy rich.
next time on the Mark Thompson Show.
Wow, how about it for Craig, everybody? Nice job on that. Upgraded the That's Rich intro and outro.
I was happy he kept Bernie in the intro.
Bernie is mission critical. I completely agree. You got it. The 1%. You got to have that in there. Spade is making that weatherman money. Exactly. Joe Box gets it. He's, this
Joe Box and Little Anthony.
David Spade. When I lived in Malibu, did I tell you I had a place in Malibu? I don't know if I've mentioned that before, Kim.
No, why did you give that up? That's amazing. Was it on the beach?
Because I realized I didn't have endless amounts of money. But at the time, I had a network show and I had the local program, etc. I thought I could do it, and I had a place in Malibu, and right down the beach, in a much bigger place than mine, was David Spade. Yeah, he lived on the same beach. Yeah,
Neighbors.
Yeah, it's kind of the celebrity brag.
Did you run every morning in your short shorts on the beach together?
Yeah, I walked down what I called Celebrity Row. Saw Ryan O'Neal had a place 4 doors down. Les Moonves and who's he married to? Julie Chen, is that her last name?
Yeah.
They were there. They had a place there. I would see him standing on the deck with a white wine in his hand, like regularly. I'd see him there, and he just looked so happy. And you'd look up to him and you go, you're like, wow. That's
look at the life. Who's not happy?
Exactly. It's pretty damn cool. And that for all of them is just their beach house. For me, it was all I could do to have a place there. For them, it was their beach house. Oh, here's what's going on at noon with Nikki Maduro. Would you like to share it with us, Kim?
Yeah. She's talking about whether Hamlin's health issue, she calls it a heart attack. I guess you could say that because his heart stopped. And what we were kind of talking about before, Mark, will this whole situation reduce people wanting to let their kids participate in football? Popping popcorn over the fight for speaker. That is right. And that is what we will continue to look for, as the first time in 100 years, it's now gone to a second round vote. Megyn Kelly is taking on Barbara Walters' parenting. And is nepotism necessarily a bad thing? We'll talk about it on the Nikki Maduro Show. That in just 2 minutes here on.
Definitely a thing. Yeah, that's it.
I am dosing mushrooms right now.
All right. Well, that's cool. You want to be dosed up for the show. I don't blame you. Very, very cool. Well, I appreciate everybody who has watched the show today, who's liked the show with the thumbs up. That's a big part of how we survive in this YouTube universe. And what I will tell you about YouTube is that I was on the line with them. You can never actually get them on the phone, but in a chat for 3.5 hours yesterday. Right after I got off the show, it was till 3:30. And we are making some progress, but it may be another month before we achieve full monetization. But we're working with them. And so in the meantime, I appreciate you subscribing, sharing, hitting the thumbs up. And if you haven't, and you do have the funds, this show is free, and it'll, we're happy to provide it to you for free. But the the community that has risen up and is propping us up by going to Patreon and also going to our PayPal contribution site. That's all through themarkthompsonshow.com. Just go to themarkthompsonshow.com and you can make a contribution that way. You got to put the in there, otherwise you end up at a ventriloquist website. Yeah. The ventriloquist is good, and I would like to book him. Maybe this year we'll be able to book him.
A Christian ventriloquist at that.
He's a Christian ventriloquist, and
yeah,
Christians need ventriloquists too. I've got no problem. But to make a contribution to support us, you have to go to themarkthompsonshow.com. So when we speak tomorrow, it will likely be raining hard. So hang in there. Plan your travel smartly. And then tomorrow on the show, Shadow Stevens, the great Hollywood announcer, voice of our show. He was on Dave's World. He's been actor, incredible creative mind, and of course, just the golden-throated one, Hollywood Squares. Yeah, he'll be here tomorrow. So that and more as we continue tomorrow and all week here on the big YouTube show.
I'm Shadow Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Yes, I hope the power stays on. All right. Bye-bye. Until tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Kim. Bye, Albert. Bye, Tony. Bye-bye.